All right. We'll call the February 9th, 2021 meeting of the Nicollet County Board of Commissioners to order. We'll start with the flag pledge led by Commissioner Kolars.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This will now be our reminder about silencing cell phones and muting microphones. Thank you all for being here this morning. Ryan, I think I'll turn to you about the meeting notice for today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting will be conducted under Minnesota Statute 13D.021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means. Today's meeting is being conducted using Zoom online meeting technology and is also being recorded. Notice was provided on how to participate in today's meeting. All board action will be conducted by roll call vote. And at this time, we'll confirm that all commissioners can hear the discussion. Commissioner Drano?
I can hear the discussion.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Count?
I am present and can hear.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
As we turn to approval of the agenda, Ryan, I think you had one item you wanted to add.
Yeah, I'd like to just add a quick update on our business relief grant program under my items today.
Does anyone else have changes to the agenda?
Kemp would move to approve as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Kemp moves, Lipke seconds, approving the agenda as amended. Abby, if you would take the roll call, please.
Kemp?
Yes.
Lipke?
Yes.
Dreno?
Yes.
Kolars?
Yes.
Morrow?
Yes. The agenda is approved as amended. We'll turn to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items they wish to remove from the consent agenda? If not, a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Kemp would move.
Kemp moves. I think Drantle seconds.
Okay.
No, I thought you unmuted, so I thought. We have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Abby, if you would take the roll, please.
Kemp?
Yes.
Dreno?
Yes.
Lipke?
Yes.
Kolars?
Yes.
Morrow?
Yes, the consent agenda is approved. Public appearances. Ryan, do we have anyone who is signed up? We don't see anyone on the screen.
No, I do not see anybody, and I was not contacted by anybody.
Okay. Assuming there's nobody in the other room, we have no public appearances. We'll turn to property services and the January 25th commission meeting.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I have one item for you today regarding the January 25th Planning and Zoning meeting. It was for the applicant New Ulm Quartzsite Quarry, Inc. for their 3-year renewal of their mineral extraction permit to mine, crush, process, and stockpile quartzite, including a hot mix plant and a concrete batch plant. As I said, this is their 3-year renewal that has been going on every 3 years for quite some time. At that meeting, there was no public testimony, but prior to the meeting, we did receive a phone call from Brenda Golden, a adjacent landowner, just curious of if there was any changes in their permit request. We confirmed that they would be continuing to operate as they have been in the last year. Just a note, and we can see that there's been a lot of activity as far as the last 3 years. They have removed 1,662,762 tons. So this is is the largest gravel pit that the county has at this time, located in Cortland Township. The commission recommended unanimous approval, and today I'm asking for the board to approve the conditional use permit and findings of fact document.
And so move.
Kemp seconds.
Lipke moves, Kemp seconds. Any discussion?
Chair, could I have a question of Mandy, or maybe even Seth coming in on this.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just curious about the access to the quarry and what issues, if any, lately, Mandy or Seth, regarding safe travel in and out for our motorists on that highway. Thank you.
To access the gravel pit or for New Ulm Quartzsite Quarry, you come off of Highway 14 onto a township road, which is much wider than your average township road to accommodate their large truck traffic. The quarry works very well with Cortland Township. Most of the work is actually done by the quarry as far as watering to control dust during the summer. But if there's any issues, the township is very involved with it and they're aware of it. In the past, we have had comments made from the township that they have been happy with the way that the quarry has been operating with the road.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Drannel.
Mr. Chair, I believe when we did our Highway 14 Planning Committee group, the New Ulm Quartzsite people sat in on those discussions also on what kind of access they may or may not have needed once the road gets rebuilt.
Any other discussion? Seeing no other discussion, Abby, if you take the roll, please.
Lipke,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Drennel,
Yes.
Kolars,
Yes.
Morrow.
Yes, the motion is passed. Ms. Landcamer, is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we move on in the agenda?
No, I don't, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. We'll turn to finance and the fourth quarter 2020 donations.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board, staff. I am here today to present quarter four 2020 donations received and looking for approval of the resolution. For quarter four, we received a variety of donations, a couple of them being veterans donations for the veterans van, various donations, and then also a $50 donation from Francis Tuff Miller. We also received a donation for a park bench at 7 Mile Creek from Alan Boning for $1,259. And then we also received various donations for our loan closet. The total for quarter four is $2,354. And I'd be looking for approval of the resolution.
Kolars moves.
Campbell second.
Kolars moves, Kemp seconds. Motion to adopt the resolution. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Abby, would you take the roll, please?
Kolars,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Drennel,
Yes.
Morrow.
Yes, the motion is, the resolution is adopted. Ms. McCormick, is there anything in addition you'd like to add today?
Just welcome back, Abby. I haven't even seen you yet, but I hear you.
That's great. Well, thank you. And we'll move to Mr. Greenwood, Public Works.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff. A couple items from Public Works today. The first two for the board's consideration is to consider MnDOT agreement number 1045974 in the corresponding resolution. So this agreement and resolution will provide for reimbursement of preliminary engineering fees to develop plans and specifications for the repair work on the County Road 21 slope slide issue that we've been dealing with. This project will be a federal disaster project, and so we're eligible to receive federal disaster funds to help with the preliminary engineering costs associated with developing this project. So federal funds would cover 80% of the preliminary engineering fees, and then the remaining 20% is to be covered either by state aid disaster account funds or Minnesota state disaster emergency funds. One thing to note is that the total preliminary engineering for this project is going to exceed the $140,000 that's contained in the agreement. The $140,000 right now is based on initial estimates of what the preliminary engineering was going to entail. But since I had submitted all that information to the feds and MnDOT, that was the authorized amount. Since then, I've got an updated a fee schedule from SRF Consulting and Gale Tech that shows that the ultimate engineering fees are going to be more. But to get that additional amount added into this agreement at this point, I have about 3 different steps and approvals that I got to go through to get that additional amount added. And so just to get the ball rolling, I'm going to have the board authorize this initial $140,000 as part of this agreement. You'll see me coming back at some later time for the board to execute amendments to this agreement. And if you recall, for the County Road 14 project, I came back to the board 2 additional times with 2 amendments to that preliminary engineering agreement with the state. So it's not unheard of to have to do an amendment or 2 to these agreements as things unfold. So in your packet, there is a copy of the agreement and resolution, and I'm asking the board today to approve this MnDOT agreement and the corresponding resolution. I'm more than happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Seth, this is John. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So is this going to be for the small area or for the 600-foot area that we were thinking about?
This is for the permanent repair work that will be a much larger project than the temporary emergency repair project that we had completed in November of last year. So this will be a much larger project. I think the project's getting a little longer in length than what we initially thought. We're probably going to be talking about 1,000 to 1,500 feet that we will be totally stabilized. So this project will ultimately be pretty large. I'm anticipating it'll be well over $3 million project when it's all said and done.
Hey, Seth, I'll move the resolution.
Campbell second.
And then, Seth, Mr. Greenwood, just so I could be clear, there was a resolution and findings of fact? Or is it just a resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
There's the agreement that the board needs to approve, and then the resolution authorizes the county administrator and the board chair to be able to sign the agreement.
Okay. So the motion
I'd like to switch it to move all of the above.
Okay, we have a motion and Kemp seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Abby, if you would take the roll, please.
Libke?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Nicollet?
Yes.
Journal?
Yes.
Morrow?
Yes, the agreement and the resolution are approved. Mr. Green, we'll go to the second item.
My second item is to consider professional service proposal for the County Road 21 slope repair project. So this is almost like the second part of the initial agenda, of the first agenda item that we just dealt with. And so attached in your packet is a professional service proposal from SRF Consulting and Gale Tech Engineering to provide those preliminary engineering services to develop the plans and specifications and environmental documentation and permits to get this permanent repair project on County Road 21 ready for bidding. And I will just note that SRF is the prime consultant. Gale Tech is a subcontractor, so to speak, to SRF, and they provide all the in-depth geotechnical expertise for the project. And so, as you know, County Road 21 was damaged by flooding rains and high Minnesota river levels in 2020. Like I previously mentioned, this project has become a federal disaster project, and so we're getting federal highway funds to help with the permanent repairs, emergency repairs, and these preliminary engineering fees. And one interesting item to note with this project is that to get the federal disaster declaration, the governor of Minnesota had to sign an emergency declaration, disaster declaration for this singular issue. And in talking with MnDOT and others, it appears this is the first time in the history of the state that a governor's ever issued a declaration for a singular county and a singular disaster. So this we're kind of going through uncharted territory here, which is somewhat neat. So when I submitted this item for the board agenda, shortly after I did that, I had received a call from MnDOT, and they were saying before this proposal can be officially executed and approved, MnDOT was required a pre-award audit. And as I understand, this pre-award audit is SRF and Gale Tech have to submit basically financial documents for their entire operation and provide that to the MnDOT auditors. MnDOT auditors review that information, and then they make any kind of recommendations back to myself and Gale Tech and SRF if there's any changes needed to their proposal that they have given us. I'm not anticipating anything really coming out of that, as Gale Tech and SRF have just submitted pre-award audits to MnDOT in November of 2020, and those went through just fine. So it seems like this is more of a procedural issue that MnDOT goes through for these federal aid type of contracts. They never went through this with County Road 14 project, but for this one, they're requiring it. So I don't know if the board is comfortable. What I would originally, I was going to recommend to the board to approve this agreement today and authorize myself to sign off on it. I'm going to change that recommendation, if the board is comfortable with this, to conditionally approve basically the dollar amount that we're working with here and the agreement, and allow myself to sign and approve their contract at a later date once I hear back from MnDOT on any changes needed to this. And if they're insignificant, I would go ahead and sign the agreement. If not, if there's something very large or of concern, I would definitely bring this agreement back to the county board again for review and approval. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions on this one.
Let me first ask if there are questions about the project itself. If there are not questions about the project itself, I'm going to turn to the county attorney. I got to tell you, my first thought is I'm not crazy about conditionally approving an agreement. I suppose I'd rather approve an agreement, and then if we have to come back and amend the agreement or do a revision, I'm good with that, but I'm certainly willing to be counseled otherwise.
Mr. Chair, I think your level of comfort with proceeding either way would be appropriate. Certainly we can come back and address any modifications as necessary, as articulated by Mr. Greenwood in his presentation.
So Mr. Greenwood, let me turn back to you for a moment. I hope you understand it's not about you at all. It's really just about conditionally approving something. I don't like that idea by a public body. If we were to just approve the proposal and authorize you to sign, and then if changes come up, we can come back, would that be okay, or is that really just not workable?
Oh, I can work with that. That's just fine. All it does is if the report comes back and any recommended changes are basically insignificant, it just delays when we get SRF and Gale Tech going. But if we have to wait a couple of weeks, it's not the end of the world either.
Commissioner Kolars.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What might those modifications be, and what would you expect? Is there any history that shows that MnDOT would come back with something that would be out of line or cause us concern?
You know, they haven't provided too many examples of what they've come back with. I saw one little example about MnDOT caps, how much they will pay in an overhead rate, and that's one of the submittals of this audit report is the consultants are to show how they calculate their overhead hourly rate. And so depending on what SRF and Gale Tech submits to MnDOT, there may be a capping of that, and what that ultimately would do is probably change possibly the cost of the proposal by some amount. But I'm not expecting wholesale changes, since SRF and Gale Tech do significant amount of work on MnDOT contracts and they go through this process routinely. I'm guessing they streamline the process that meet what MnDOT is looking for.
If this is a time delay issue, we could approve it. We could authorize Mr. Greenwood to sign. If there are changes, Mr. Greenwood could inform me as chair, and I could talk with him. And if I think, you know what, we need board approval for these changes, then we bring it back to the board. I turn to the board to see where your level of comfort is with that approach.
I'm very comfortable with that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if you make the motion, I'll second it.
All right, I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Lipke seconds. Is there any further discussion?
We certainly could bring it to the board workshop next week if it's back in time for that.
Right.
That's great too, I agree.
Yep.
If there's no further discussion, Abby, if you would take the roll, please.
Morrow,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Journal,
Yes.
Kohlers,
Yes.
Kemp.
Yes.
The motion passes. Mr. Greenwood will go to the final payment item.
My last item is for the board to consider final payment for our 2020 aggregate materials project. So our 2020 aggregate materials project was a contract let for to mine and crush aggregate materials at our county pit. And so we made class 5 gravel that we use in re-shouldering our paved roads, and then also for placing gravel on our gravel roads. We also produced a significant amount of sand that we use in our winter maintenance operations. And then the other part of the contract was to do a significant amount of overburden stripping in the pit to gain access to good materials to make these materials that we use on our roads. So the contract is complete, and the contractor is looking for his final payment. And so the final payment is $19,017.29. So I'm asking the board today to approve that to Tim's Trucking.
Yeah, would move approval.
I'll second.
Kemp moves, Lipke seconds, approval of the payment. Any discussion?
Seth, Terry, or Mr. Chair, Seth, is it common to have that big a difference in bids?
Not too common. The low bidder, he had a significant difference in his stripping unit price. I think he made a bit of an error in his calculations, and in the end, the county benefited from that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Abby, if you would take the roll, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Journal,
Yes.
Kohlers,
Yes.
Morrow.
Yes, the payment is approved. Mr. Greenwood, anything in addition for you to comment on?
Not at this time, unless board members have questions.
Any questions for Mr. Greenwood? Well, you silenced us, so we're going to just move on to the administration.
All right.
Thank you. Ryan, government center reopening.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I put on the agenda today to have a discussion with the board about consideration for reopening the government center. I met last week with Jackie Kopet, our license center manager, and property and public service director, Mandy Landcamber, to discuss the reopening of the government center. And we are recommending that we reopen to general walk-in traffic on February 16th. That would be next Tuesday. The government center is closed due to the President's Day holiday on the 15th. Walk-in service would apply primarily to the license center, and that we would still recommend appointments only for other services. And the Health and Human Service building would still remain locked, and services would be by appointment only. Reasons for reopening to walk-in customers and monitoring the COVID cases and test positivity rates for Nicollet County and the region. Those rates are continuing to decline to levels that we saw last summer when we were open. We also have plenty of safety measures that we put in place last year to make our buildings safe for both the public and for staff. And then in addition, the state's extension of the expired driver's license is ending on March 31st. So we anticipate a lot of customers coming in for that. And so we feel that opening sooner rather than later would help spread out some of that business and hopefully eliminate congestion in our lobbies. So with that, I will ask Mr. Chair if Jackie or Mandy have anything in addition to add to that, and be happy to answer any questions.
I will just say that our department, we're comfortable opening up. We are, with the driver's license extension ending on March 31st, we think it's a good idea. Our driver's license appointments are the first ones to fill up. And so I think we need to serve our customers, and we definitely feel safe behind all of our PPE that we have in place. And we haven't had any issues in the office with any COVID outbreaks or anything. So we're fully staffed at this time.
And Mandy, you would have the rest of your department still encouraging customers by appointment only. Obviously, some people may show up, but you're still going to encourage appointments.
Yeah, we'll continue to encourage appointments, both in property services, property assessment, and the recorder's office. And appointments still are occurring off-site at the individual's place of residence too. So we're doing our best to minimize the traffic in the government center, but making sure that we're providing our services and everyone is protected.
And if I could just ask the county attorney, what's the ongoing status of court operations?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the Supreme Court order has now extended through March 15th to abate the jury trials occurring absent specific exception granted by the Chief Judge. Otherwise, all of our other court proceedings also continue to be remotely held unless, again, special exemption is granted through a special procedure for very unique cases to have those hearings in person. Otherwise, everything is remote. So that shouldn't impact, or that when we go back to having in-person hearings, that will help people have access to the government center.
Right. Great. Thank you. Ryan, was there anything in addition you wanted to
add? Nothing with that.
Commissioners, any discussion?
Hello, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lipke.
I know Ryan had concerns about Blue Earth County. Are they going to be opening?
I think they already heard.
I have not reached out to them. I'm not sure if Jackie knows what their situation is. Really, it's hard to compare county to county because everybody has different facilities and different setups. So, and they've been able to take a lot of customers through some of their remodeling that they did that provided access through walk-up service to the side of their building, basically. So We think that opening 6 weeks in advance of the driver's license new deadline, March 31st, will help space out any rush that we might get. And in the past, actually, we've experienced many of our non-county customers coming in, actually coming from far and away, a lot of metro counties, I believe, Jackie, and so it's not just Woolworth County.
Well, thank you. And Jackie, do most of your people have at least the first vaccination?
No, I don't think any of them are eligible at this point. So no, I don't believe so, but.
Thank you.
Other commissioners?
I will just add, Mr. Chair, the resolution the board passed to close the government center authorized myself and staff to assess when we reopen. So it doesn't technically take a motion by the board to do that, but we definitely want to hear the board's feedback today on your thoughts.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kemp.
I would support the staff's decision. The issue would be it's the original authorization is we may have to change again. We don't know that, but I'm confident in everyone's ability to monitor their needs, and I support their decision. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
As do I.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Commissioner Kolars.
I'll never forget the time we were sitting down in the Emergency Occupation Center, the old boardroom, where John is sitting alone in a good spot today. When you, Terry, said we should close these buildings after being in touch with some of your friends, I think it was Ramsey County, and I went, whoa. And it was a right decision to at least forward that information at that time. And I trust that the staff is making a decision that's based on what their comfort level is. But I would say too, let's remember that the folks who would be walking in may or may not be afflicted with this terrible disease. How do we screen them, or do we?
Yeah, Commissioner Kolars, I would say we don't have the staffing capabilities to screen folks, and I'm hesitant to ask any medical information or vaccination information. We can't do that, but we certainly can reach out to Sheriff Lang if we do get crowds to help with crowd control. We used bailiffs last summer and last fall when we had that, and that was helpful. And we do have in place public thermometers where people can check their temperatures before they enter the building and that type of thing. So I think we've got some options there for at least crowd control and providing options for the public.
And Mr. Chair, I just think that is good to have that. I think it worked for Jackie's department to have the folks down in the big lobby in these last few months as they entered, Jackie, correct? And your employees met them down there, and sometimes they were wearing masks and other times they weren't, and many times they were complaining about it. So hopefully those signals can go out that we would expect folks who do come into our buildings to be masked up and be ready to be healthy.
I could add to that. We'll continue with our 2 staff down in the atrium area. That will be a permanent fixture, as you know, but that should, that does dramatically eliminate the traffic upstairs. And we can get a lot of people in and out with tab renewals, and they don't even need to be around the courthouse. But that's an excellent spot down there. All my staff, it really likes that.
I will add our experience last year. I was a little concerned if people would follow social distancing guidance that we had in the building and mask. And for the most part, we have not had a problem with that. Most people have been very good. I think you'd agree, Jackie, that that's what your staff have observed.
Mm-hmm. We really do have very few people that come in unmasked. there isn't a lot of issues, although maybe those 1 or 2 or 3 people have been kind of noisy about it. But considering all the traffic we have, we don't have a huge issue with masks or not wearing masks or wearing masks.
Additional discussion or questions? I'm not proposing that there be a motion at this time. I think I heard from Commissioner Kemp and others that we have the resolution that we've already approved. I think I would say on behalf of the 5 of us, certainly staff safety is paramount. And so if we get to a situation in which you feel this isn't working, I know that the 5 of us would want to hear about it, because we want to make sure that you and everyone who works with us feels as safe as we can make it be.
Yeah, we'll continue to monitor the positivity rates in cases, and if we should experience a spike or have problems with congestion in our lobbies, we will certainly bring a recommendation back to the board.
Great. You had an additional item, Ryan.
Yes, I would just like to ask the board your thoughts if you're interested, since we are going to be reopening the government center to walk-in traffic, if the board has any desire to have the board meetings and workshop in person again.
Ryan, what I'd like to do, I'd like to move from this item and for a moment, let people have some opportunity to think about it. Can we go to the business grants?
Oh, sure, we can do that. My agenda addition item, just an update for the board on the business grant program that we've been administering the last 3 weeks. This is funding from the state of Minnesota to provide COVID relief to businesses and nonprofits impacted by the pandemic. The grant period, our first round ended Friday, and as of yesterday, we had 87 businesses that we've approved for funding for $583,000. The total funds that we received from the state of Minnesota for this program was $660,000. So that was a good response of putting these funds to use. That leaves us with $77,000 left. So I would recommend that what we do is we just keep the program going. We have until March 15th to try to spend all the remaining funds. And I would, again, recommend we keep it open, and I'll reach out to our cities to see if there's anybody that was missed that would obviously potentially be a qualified applicant for the program. And once we have the final tabulations of the businesses that were funded, I can provide that to the board.
Any questions or comments by the board? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute and couldn't get it done. The folks that I've talked to in our community have been very, very pleased with the work that the county offices did, Ryan and Heather and others, and the process worked very well. And so I think we need to thank Ryan and Heather for their work.
Great, thank you. Others?
Mr. Chair.
Please.
I'd like to echo Jack's comments that I've received nothing but favorable responses to our groups and our staff's willingness to work with individuals. And again, very pleased. And I appreciate the fact that we want to keep open and get those dollars distributed to those in need. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. Well, thank you, Ryan. Thank you all. We'll move to Chair's report. The only thing I would mention, I know we've been kept up to date on the vaccine programs, and I know that Public Works is not here today because you're busy doing other things. And this is a fluid situation, as we're seeing, with some bumps, and there'll be some more conversations, I imagine, this afternoon about vaccines and doses and getting them out in a reasonable way And I expect that we'll continue to get updates. And Ryan, is there anything that you know of that we should add to the vaccine question or discussion?
No, I have not got an update today from Health and Human Services, other than that they're continuing and have several clinics planned this week. And up till now, it's been a week-to-week learning process as things are still evolving of getting routine set up for vaccinations.
Well, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. And even though this is a small group, we were chatting about this. One of the big problems has been people getting links to sign up for a vaccine and then posting those links on social media or sharing them with friends who are not part of those focus groups of healthcare workers, teachers, and others. And I know that that has been a significant problem in Nicollet County and elsewhere. And I thank the staff for its patience. And I would just ask the public, please follow the directions, because that's the smoothest way to get these shots out to folks. And it doesn't put additional and unnecessary strains on already taxed public health workers who are doing their level best to keep us safe and to get us vaccinated. I'm now done. I'll turn to commissioners for their reports. Commissioner Drannell.
Thank you. I attended the pre-construction meeting for County Ditch 86A last week via Zoom. Everything I do is via Zoom these days. It was an interesting process to watch. Landowners' concerns were addressed or heard. I attended the legislative meet and greet. We had union negotiations with jailers and dispatchers. I had a one water, one plan watershed meeting last Thursday. And I got to see Public Health in Action last night.
Oh, good, good. Thank you. Commissioner Kolars.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The legislative meeting that we had was, I think, one of the most efficient that we've had in years. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for guiding us through that process. Sometimes Zoom meetings give us the opportunity to really focus and multitask at the same time. I joined Commissioner Drannell with our union meeting on the 2nd of February, and then on the 4th, another TDS meeting. Thank you.
Commissioner Kemp.
Sorry, having a slight mute issue. Since our last gathering, I had MRCI Executive Board meeting, multi-county HRA meeting, statewide communications board, South Central EMS, obviously our legislative meeting. And going into this month, I'm serving MRCI Executive Board, Stakeholders for Educational Success, MRCI Executive Board meeting, MRCI Finance meeting, MRCI Full Board meeting. And that takes me up to today. Thank you.
Are you doing anything with MRCI?
It is that time of year when, and I would take this moment to acknowledge that MRCI is doing very well. The recovery from COVID and literally pivoting has changed the ongoing dynamic of MRCI, but the board is very confident that they're here to stay and are doing very well. We're still a large organization that represents a huge area. Financially, our operation represents about a $95 million business. So it's significant, and we're doing our very, very best, as the clients are also now just some being served for vaccines and things like that. We're going to see more of that deployment back into the community. And again, we're very pleased with how we've done, and actually surprisingly, we were able to finish the year with a small net gain.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that work. Commissioner Lipke.
Yes, I also sat in on the 86A Zoom meeting, and I'm not taking a per diem because I'm one of the members. Went to they had the legislators meetings with the rest of you. I thought, like Jack said, it went very well. had the extension meeting. I'm also on the committee to hire a new ag educator. So we had a meeting, Zoom meeting, soil and water meeting, sat in on the lower Minnesota watershed as Marie did, attended the legislative meeting in Judson that was called by, I think, a group of farmers with kind of some support from the Minnesota corn growers, and Senator Frantz and Representative Ackland were there. And as I was coming here this morning, I could see 86A from number 12, and there's some really big piles of dirt stacked up out there. So they are working. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. I too attended legislative meetings. I've been on some vaccine calls with AMC and an AMC call on the DHS budget as that discussion moves forward. Before we turn to other items, turn to the county attorney for any report or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too was able to attend the legislative meeting with the rest of the board and echo the comments that it went very smoothly, and appreciated the opportunity to talk one-on-one with our legislators about issues that are important to our county. I'd also like to take an opportunity. We are hearing of increased reports of fraudulent activity. So I'd like to take this opportunity to remind folks that to be cognizant of things that are coming in the mail. We're hearing reports of people getting unemployment notification when they didn't sign up for unemployment benefits. So pay attention to those mailings. We're also starting to hear reports of scams regarding vaccinations. And would also note, I'm seeing a lot of people posting on Facebook when they go get their vaccination, they're holding up their card, showing that they are vaccinated, and remind folks that scammers are very creative individuals and can zoom in on those pictures and obtain confidential information, similar to your child going out and getting their driver's license, for example. They're holding up their driver's license. They can zoom in and get confidential information off of those. So just ask people to be really cognizant and aware of things they're receiving in the mail or phone calls that they're receiving because they might be a scam effort. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank Sheriff Lang. I think both of you have been recently in the media talking about these issues, and that awareness is really important. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Do we have meetings and conferences, Ryan?
The only upcoming meeting is the AMC Legislative Conference that will be virtual on February 18th. So commissioners can register individually, and then the county will be billed for that separately.
Great, thank you. Per diems and expenses. Is there a motion to approve?
Kemp will move it.
Kemp moves.
John seconds.
Lipke seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, Abby, if you would take the roll, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Kohlars,
Yes.
Drennel,
Yes.
Morrow.
Yes, the motion is approved. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Kohlars.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. I may have missed something.
Well, I thought you asked our administrator to
Oh, yes,
bring back his idea of whether or not we should have in-person meetings. So
I apologize because I whispered to him, but my whisper to Ryan doesn't get picked up. So I apologize. What I'd like commissioners to do is to give some thought to returning. We can then discuss this, if that's okay, Commissioner Kohlars, at our workshop next week. I don't like the idea of putting it just out there without inviting you to have an opportunity to give it some thought.
very good, thank you.
With that, if that's okay, a motion to adjourn.
Kemp will move.
Kemp moves.
Drennel will second.
Randall seconds. Abby, if you would take the roll, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Drennel,
Yes.
Kohlars,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Morrow.
Yes, the Board of Commissioners meeting's adjourned. I'll call the Drainage Authority meeting to order. Do we have an agenda? Yeah. I seek a motion to approve the agenda.
Temple move.
Kent moves and Lipke seconds, I think. I see him going to second.
John seconds, Lipke seconds.
Abby, if you would take the roll, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Kolars,
Yes.
Drennel,
Yes.
Morrow.
Yes, the agenda is approved. We'll turn to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove either of the two items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Temple move the consent agenda.
Kent moves.
Lipke seconds.
And Lipke seconds. Abby, would you take the roll on the consent agenda, please?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Where is the ditch repair 21-001? Is there any information on that?
I don't have any. Let's see, Seth, you're still.
I think it was in the packet.
Oh, okay.
It was County Ditch 84.
Okay.
And
just a standard repair.
The landowners requested the ditch system televise the two main lines. That was the referral. The estimated cost was $6,000.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, Abby, if you would take the roll on the consent agenda, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Drennel,
Yes.
Kolars,
Yes.
Morrow.
Yes. The consent agenda is approved. We'll turn to the reimbursement resolution for 86A.
And Mr. Chair, that would be property, our public service manager, Kopet, will present that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is a reimbursement resolution that's attached in your packet for the consideration of the bonding and the expenses that we're going to be paying for County Ditch 86A. So recently we just approved the pump contract. We'll be starting to pay that out. We are going to be meeting with the bonding company later this week. But one of the first things that we do when we bond is, because we're going to have to reimburse ourselves, is to pass the resolution, the reimbursement resolution, so we can reimburse ourselves for the expenses that have already occurred.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would move the resolution as presented.
Temple second.
We have a motion and a second on the resolution as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Abby, would you take the roll, please?
Drennel,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Kolars,
Yes.
Lipke,
Abstains.
Morrow.
Yes. The resolution is adopted. Ryan, do we have anything additional for the Drainage Authority?
Nothing today.
Anyone else have anything on the Drainage Authority? Seeing none, just invite a motion to adjourn.
We'll move.
Kemp moves, Lipke seconds, adjourning the Drainage Authority meeting. Abby, if you would take the roll, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Lipke,
Lipke?
Yes.
thank you. Kolars,
Yeah.
Drennel,
Yes.
Morrow.
Yes, the Drainage Authority meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much, everybody. Thank you for all you're doing.